Harmy, convincing victories for England. Having lost the ODI series, the West Indies, you would have thought were reinforced. The likes of Nicholas Pooran and Andre Russell coming back, but England have absolutely hammered them in the first two T20s. Um, Really convincing. And I'm guessing you're happy with Jos Buttler at number three?
Yeah, very happy at Jos Buttler at number three. I'm just happy that Jos is back playing. You can strengthen with Nicholas Pooran and Andre Russell as much as you want, but for me, the best white ball player in world cricket is back for England after a break. It just shows you manners, what a rest can do. You know, a little break and a bit of time away from the game. Work on your body, work on anything really, mental freshness. Because after the World Cups, I mean, Jos looked as though he had the world on his shoulders and everything was getting to him. So, and you could see that he was quite spiky in interviews after a couple of them. So he looks as though he's got, not his mojo back, because I don't think he lost it. I just think I think when you've been on the road for so long, there's sometimes a break out of the game and not actually picking a bat up for a while can do you the world of good. And I think it has Jos this one. He looked in fine form that second game. I mean, first 10 balls he looked as though he hadn't played for quite a while. But then after that, but it just shows. I mean, I've said this for many years. Even in 2020 cricket, you've got more time than you think. And he, I think he had about two off, 4 off 10 balls. Then he got 80 odd off 40 or 45 balls. I mean, it was a brilliant six hitting display of balance, timing, areas you can hit the ball in, especially with your strengths. But yes, it was brilliant to see him back.
All right, without further ado, let's hear from Jos Buttler himself. He was talking to our man in the Caribbean, Cameron Ponsonby.
Jos, you spoke ahead of the series about how much you wanted to make sure you enjoyed playing for England again. Just how much fun did you have out there today?
Yeah, a lot. It's been great to be back out there. Nice to face more than one ball as I did in the first game, but it's a bit scratchy early on. But yeah, I really enjoyed batting, and I think that's again, like I said before the matches, finding that enjoyment and being very present every ball. And I really enjoyed being out there today.
You hit 1-6 over the sort of Garfield Sobers Pavilion. We saw you flash your bicep to Will Jacks. Do you remember hitting as big a one as that?
Probably not, actually. That was a good one. I think 4 months of rehab. There's quite a lot of work in the gym, isn't it? So that's a sweet one. I enjoyed it.
Obviously not too much difference today coming in for the second ball, but can you just explain your decision a little bit about why you've chosen to shift down to number 3?
Yeah, just something different, something new for me, which is exciting and refreshing, and also just to give Will Jacks the opportunity to open the innings. It's something he's done fantastically well in all the franchises he's played in and for Surrey for a number of years, and just to give him that familiarity and opening, and for those two guys to know I'm sort of behind them as well, and hopefully gives them some freedom and a licence to go out there and attack.
You obviously weren't here for the ODI series, but it is now 5 matches from 5 that have been won by the team that has won the toss. Just how much of an impact are conditions making across this tour?
Obviously a big impact so far. There's definitely an advantage, it seems. But we spoke about it before this game that we must have a mindset that if we do lose the toss and we're stuck in, we can still win the game. We've got to play well and recognise how to do that. I think there's probably a swing of 10, 20 runs maybe, what it looks like on the toss. So being aware of that, if we were batting first, how to set up the game to really get a score that you can defend is pretty wet now and stuff. But we certainly believe that on the wrong side of the toss we can still win the match.
That's England captain Jos Buttler after a 4 or 5 month break from the game, well, 3 or 4 months anyway. Speaking to our man in the Caribbean, Cameron Ponsonby. Harmy, the question about him being at number 3, it was pointed out to me that he's perhaps too big a wicket to go in first. He's too important, and whoever does open, presumably Phil Salt and whoever opens in the next year or so, can play with a certain amount more freedom because they know that Jos is in next, and if they do get off to a flying start, then England are only going to benefit.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that, and I think 3, 4, whichever one. I think from Jos's point of view, I think a lot of people we want him in as early as possible. 1, because he's our best player. 2, because he does he does like to take a couple of balls to get going and, you know, see the lay of the land and everything that goes with it. So you don't want him to sort of come in at number 4, number 3, number 4, if England get off to a great start and then not slow things down. But I just think he, along with like Liam Livingston, I think it's just perfect fit for him to be at number 3. We've seen in that game, I thought Sakib Mahmood, and we're going to speak, you hear what he says in a bit, but if you watch that, he bowled a few wides in that first sort of 2 overs. But I was watching Terry going, I'm not bothered about these wides. It's swinging. He's dangerous. Something's happening. Now, if you flip that over and Jos Buttler's at the other end, opening the baton, if he nicks off, like you say, early, I mean, that's a massive wicket for England. So to see what's happening, to understand the conditions, and to get himself a chance, I think number 3 is probably the best spot, or 3 or 4 is probably the best spot for Jos in 2020 cricket.
Jacob Bethell was impressive as well, wasn't he, with his maiden 50?
Yeah, what a player. I mean, they talked about the selectors getting it right. It's bizarre, Manners, that in the last 2 years, these selectors have got it spot on, picking players whose numbers look average. I mean, they've got the bowlers are averaging 60 and come and getting 5s. The batters are averaging sort of 23 and getting 50s and 100s. Jacob, we know he's special talent in one-day cricket, and we get picked for New Zealand. The only one that's come into any sort of selection that's got numbers is Jordan Cox, and he looked as though he struggled. But this boy is so talented all round the wicket. I think there's a place for him definitely in this one, the white ball side, for a long time to come. Where he fits in the red ball side, I'm not so sure yet. But I think first and foremost, the more he gets used to international cricket and white ball cricket, which seems to be his best format, then I think his talent will shine through and he will become one of England's multi-format players for quite a while. I think he's got everything in the technical point of view, and it looks as though for somebody so young, he's got a very, very calm headpiece on him as well. So yeah, great early signs from Jacob Bethell.
I don't want to have a go at the England communications department because, we rely on them and it's got some very good people in it. But I do question their use of language sometimes. Jofra Archer has been, sent home, not for disciplinary reasons, but to have his workload managed. Now, he didn't do any work that we saw, obviously, because he didn't play a game. But he's been sent home to prepare for the Lions tour of South Africa, trip to South Africa, but also, and this is in the ECB statement, so that he can prepare for the Big Bash, because he's been signed there as well. I mean, if they just said he spent some valuable time with Adil and in and around the national team, and he's got lots of travelling coming up, so he thought he'd be better off having a rest at home for a few days. That would make sense. I mean, it does make sense.
Yeah, it does. I mean, there has been some strange noises coming out of this group over the course of this last fortnight. Not only Jofra Archer, 100% agree with you. If they just said, look, he's been away for a few weeks, he's going away for a few more, he's going to spend Christmas in Australia, he's not going to play in any of the 3 1-days, 3 T20s that are left, we're going to give him a week with the family and then get himself ready for going. I don't think anybody would have batted an eyelid, because I don't think anybody was really expecting Jofra Archer to play, with the likes of Rian Ahmed out there not playing, with obviously Adil playing, and you've got Maudsley, Bethell, and then the great man Adil Rashid. So I get that with the noises. And I mean, we haven't spoken since the 50-over competition, but I mean, Marcus Trescothick saying we don't play enough 50-over cricket. Phil Salt the following morning coming out and saying basically we don't play enough 50-over cricket. I mean, it is. I'm worried about things like that coming out. Are they opening their mouth and saying things because the media needs a soundbite and they have to say something after they're getting beat? Fine, we're not stupid, but we know that this thing's happening. Or are they really seriously? Is Phil Salt really seriously saying, I want to play more 50-over cricket? We should be playing more 50-over cricket. If he's doing that, then he's got to be telling the players have got to be telling their employers that 2020 cricket is just too much. because if we're not gonna, if we can't get better at 50 over cricket, but where do you fit it in? We fit it in around the 2020 competition, which you're getting paid 3 times, 4 times, 5 times more money. You can't have everything in life. So the noises coming out of, I mean, I really have struggled over the course of this last week listening to what's been said. And you look at bilateral cricket, you look at 50 over cricket. Jason Gillespie, a great cricket man, talking about Pakistan not being, is that a dig at Cricket Australia, or is it a dig at BCCI basically saying, Cricket Australia, we don't want to promote playing against Pakistan because we don't like them. All these things that comes with what's been said this week, I think is a dangerous narrative towards cricket in general, because if it is 2020 overkill, and the players aren't happy, the coaches aren't happy that there's too much of it, then they need to do something about it, because at this minute in time, I think cricket is very, very dangerous international level. Test cricket's nearly done. 50 over cricket is done. And if we're just going to play T20 cricket, then for me, I mean, proper cricket, good cricketers, I mean, talented cricketers at tough situations, means they're not even going to get mentioned in the next 10 years. It's going to be first class cricket. That's all they're going to be playing, because they're not going to be good. They're not going to be seen good enough to play in T20 cricket. And to be fair, if you can hit the ball out of the park, you don't have to be talented. You just have to be brute force. And that for me is not good cricketers. Proper cricketers are not going to be recognised in 10 years' time, because nobody's going to know who they are. Because average cricketers who can belt it 10 rows back are the ones that are going to be seen to be the best cricketers in the world. So that, no, they're going to make the most money, because T20 cricket, I think we're in a dangerous place in international cricket at this minute in time. And if the ICC don't get a hold of it, I mean, I'm really, really struggling to see where we're going from a talent point of view. I just think we're going to get some brute force big hitters that can whack it out of the park. I mean, rant over, but I'm really frightened of where international cricket is going in the next 3 to 5 years, because some of the stuff that's happening is embarrassing.
Phil Salt actually sounded like there wasn't a 50 over competition in the English game. It sounded like he wasn't aware of it. Anyway, you've covered a broad range of subjects there, Harmy, and we'll circle back to some of them. But that's it for part one. You're listening to Following On here on talkSPORT 2 with me, Neil Manthorp, along with former England fast bowler Steve Harmison. Next up, we'll hear from England bowler Saqib Mahmood and look ahead to the final 3 T20s in St Lucia, with every ball live and exclusive here on talkSPORT 2. Okay, let's hear now from England fast bowler Saqib Mahmood, who's taken 6 wickets in the first 2 games of the T20 series so far, including career best figures of 4 for 34 in Saturday's first T20. And he's been speaking with talkSPORT's Cameron Ponsonby.
I know you've answered this question before, but I think it's something you speak on really well. You signed a white ball only contract with Lancashire in the last however many months. Can you just explain a little bit about that decision?
Yeah, look, obviously, for me, the last couple of years I've played, not much red ball cricket because of my back. And for me, with this contract, it doesn't mean I can't play red ball cricket. I think when obviously it got announced, everyone just thought, white ball cricket is done. He's just going to go off and play all the leagues, etc. But, that isn't the case. I still want to play red ball cricket. I still want to play test cricket. But for me, it's just with this contract, it means, if my body's not, if I don't feel ready with my body, or I'm nervous about my body, I don't have to play red ball cricket. And I'm not being paid to do that. So it just means I'm not getting money off the club to play something which I don't feel too confident about. Whereas if I am playing red ball cricket, it means I'm playing because I want to do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, to kind of summarise it, I'd say that was the reason for this contract. Yeah.
So I think it's really interesting actually, where I think in the modern day, if a player signs a white ball only contract, the kind of instant response from the public and probably from the media as well is like, oh, they just want to go and play white ball franchise cricket, chasing cash. But actually, it's the exact opposite. What you've done, you've gone Lancashire, my boyhood club. I feel very loyal to them, and I don't want to take money off them for something I'm not doing. Was there any frustration from your part where there was potentially an initial reaction where it was like, oh, Sakib Mahmood doesn't want to play red ball cricket, doesn't care about Lancashire anymore, whereas actually the opposite was the case?
I think there was, because obviously it's your home fans, and I've broke my back 2 years in a row playing for the club, and putting myself out there. So, you know, I hope there was empathy from that side. And, you know, even this year I tried to turn out as much as I could. And even at the back end, I was trying to get myself ready to play in the Champo games at the back end of the season. And in the end, I got called up to the ODI squad, so I couldn't play. But yeah, for me, I feel like I'm almost forced into this decision a little bit because of how my body's been the last couple of years. If I was fully fit, you wouldn't have seen a white ball contract. You wouldn't have seen me sign a white ball contract. That's for sure. So that's as much as I can give of why it's happened from my side. So yeah, I hope, you know, if those guys do see this, they have a different view and can understand my decision a little bit more.
And just having heard you speak kind of on and off camera about your attention to detail and preparation, something I found really interesting is the work you've done with Chris Jordan. Can you just explain a little bit about like how you met up with him ahead of the series, and what were you guys working on? Why did you want to work with him so much?
Yeah, so you know, I decided to fly out 10 days early before everyone else got here, so I flew to Barbados, and I called, you know, CJ before I flew out and asked what his plans were and if he was coming out at all, and about the things I wanted to work on. So he was like, okay, I'll come out, and so he can sort of prep as well for the cricket he's got coming up. And you know, we just spoke about certain things I wanted to work on, and you know, as a player, you want somebody you can rely on to go through with these things. And CJ's experiences in the game is as good as anyone's. He's somebody I respect really well. He took me under his wing when I sort of first came into the England team, which I will always remember. You know, when you come into this sort of environment, you know, I had someone like CJ who just sort of took me around with him, and we trained together, ate together, all of that stuff. So, but yeah, there's a massive amount of respect for what he's achieved in the game. And yeah, that sort of player, he's obviously still a player, just want to make that clear, but that player-coach relationship we sort of had, you know, I actually really enjoyed it. There's not many times you get now as a cricketer when you can really have time to work on certain things and have a play around and stuff. You're always prepping for the next series, whereas, you know, that sort of passage that we had in that 10 days when we could really try a few things, it was actually really fun. And, you know, it just reminds you of being a kid again when you're trying different things. And but yeah, you know, if he does go into coaching one day, which you know, I think might be on his radar, I think he'll make an amazing coach. And he's someone I stay in touch with. Even after the first T20, he gave me a call and checked in. And you know, it's little things like that when you have a relationship with somebody in that sense. And you know, we spoke about how to then go about it the next day, you know, what to change, little things like that. So to have somebody like that at the end of a phone who's also watching and keeping tabs on your game is really nice.
Just finally, in terms of your own plans, obviously everyone knows that there's a number of players missing from this white ball squad that's out here in the West Indies at the moment. Do you know roughly kind of where you sit in the England setup at the moment? Is your mindset get on the plane to India, get on the plane to the Champions Trophy next year? Is that, I'm guessing, your plan?
Yeah, that's where I want to be. Where I am right now, I don't know. All I can control is the performances that obviously I can put out there. So, you know, it's just you want opportunities to be able to do that. You know, I haven't had much opportunity in 50 over cricket out of the 8 ODIs we've played. I only had the one game which I had, but you know, to sort of play these 2 T20s and you know, take my opportunity in that sense, you know, just that's all I can do. So yeah, I want to be on the plane to the Champions Trophy and playing in that 11, but I don't control that. I control what I do here. So my mindset's pretty much on the next game now.
Saqib, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sakib Mahmood speaking with Cameron Ponsonby. He was one of many fast bowlers who was going to be the next big thing, Harmy, a couple of years ago, and then injuries played their role, or more than their part, actually. I think he was particularly unlucky, but he's a talented cricketer who has, for the moment, gone the white ball only route. He's only signed a white ball contract with Lancashire. Is that purely a body preservation thing, or do you see him playing some red ball cricket again?
I think it's purely a body thing at this moment in time. Maybe it's a Lancashire thing as well, that Lancashire can't afford to add on the red ball game into his contract because he don't play it. He hasn't been playing it. I think there's quite a few counties will do that now because they're trying to sort of save money, trying to spread money across the course, across their squads and broaden their squads for the multi-formats, that they'd rather give him a white ball contract with a red ball incentive rather than give him a full term contract with all the bells and whistles in. And and them not playing, then you eat up a chunk of your money to players. And Lancashire have got quite a bit of them. So you've got a very, very young side, and they've got players who probably play more red ball than white ball. So more white ball than red ball. So I wonder if it's that. I think it is a body preservation. I think it is something that hopefully Saqib can look at in a year, 2 years' time, when he gets on the path like what looks like Jofra's back on, that they're building his body up to be able to bowl more than 4 overs, to then bowl more than 10 overs, to then get him into red ball cricket, because he's had a sample size of what Test match cricket's all about. I hope he enjoyed it, and I hope he wants to play Test match cricket again. And if he does, then he probably does. Then he probably will have to play games for Lancashire. So I think if he does, then everybody's a winner. He's a talented, talented boy. I think all the noises about him before his career and then at the start of his career, I think they're still there. I still think they're there. He's got pace. He's got that beautiful action that can, especially in subcontinental conditions where you can make the ball reverse swing. And we've seen in the Caribbean, when the ball is swinging, I mean, mentioned, he bowled a few wides in the T20 game, but he looks so dangerous. And early in the game, when the ball's swinging, the ball's moving, don't mind somebody bowling wides because they're looking dangerous. He looked dangerous. He got 4 foot, and I thought he's bowled really, really well for England so far.
Okay, I feel like I have to tread carefully just bringing this subject up. And I don't think that Jofra Archer will ever play a Test match again without people feeling that he's an injury risk. So from a fast bowling body perspective point of view, what would your plan be? How much first class cricket would you want Jofra to play? I mean, how much work would you want him to do before England start thinking about him playing Test cricket again? And do they think about it at all before the Ashes?
I think they do. Because I think India is important as well. I wouldn't surprise me at the start of the season. I'm not sure what the season looks like when the fixtures come out at the start of the season, but if it's like last season, the 7 first-class matches before the first Test match, we're not going to be stupid and say he's going to play in all 7. But if Mark Wood's fit, if Jofra Archer's fit, I'd expect him to play. Because I don't think Jofra will go to the IPL. I think ECB have to be strong. They give him the contract. I think ECB have to be strong and say to him, this India series, this Australia series is so important to English cricket. Once Ashes is finished, play as much as the IPL, as much as you want. I think you can go off. I think Jofra wants to play Test cricket. I think they're building his body up to playing Test cricket. It wouldn't surprise me if there is 7 first-class matches before the start of the summer that he plays at least 2, possibly 3, and then you are upping his workload, testing his body. In every game he plays, you reevaluate by a little bit of rest period to get him in a position to go again. And then if there is any red areas or if there is any dangerous signs, then you roll him back and you just row it back and you just make sure then you're starting the process. Not again, but you're just taking 1 step back. And I think if you do that sensibly with good communication, and he's under the ECB hierarchy banner, making sure that every single time he is playing, he's being monitored, then I don't see any issues. Once you're fit to bowl, man, as I've said this for a long time, and the hardest thing in the world is to have a break once you've been fit to bowl. Because, I mean, the minute you have a prolonged period from rest point of view or from an injury point of view, the minute you come back, you run the risk of getting injured again. So if you're just topping up 4 overs, 10 overs, 4 overs, 10 overs, yeah, I don't think there's much chance, or there's not as much chance of him getting injured. It sounds stupid. But if you have 4 weeks off, 5 weeks off, and you come back and start again, you're asking your body to go through it, starting again, which puts you in the risk of getting injured again. That's why Mark Wood has always struggled to put a consistent level of games together. And I would do exactly the same thing with Mark once he's fit. Get him with the Lions, bring him back, get a Durham at the start of the season and try and get 2, possibly 3 firsts out of 7 and see if you can get him in a position to hit the ground running when India come. And to have Archer and Wood with what else we've got, I think would be a huge asset towards us playing India 5 times and Australia 5 times.
And just finally, is it awkward that Archer is in the IPL auction, in the mega auction? I mean, if you're suggesting the ECB might ask him not to go, and people will ask, and I'll ask you on their behalf. It's only 4 overs, the IPL. I mean, it's why is the IPL so taxing? It is emotionally, but not so much physically, is it?
Not so much physically, but if you're building a body to bowl more than 4 overs, you need the volume. So I think that's a delicate one. I really do, for both parties, because ECB are in such a position where they don't want to mess around India. India have said, yeah, we don't care who it is. I mean, Virat Kohli pulls out. No matter who it is, whatever name it is, BCCI are saying, in any shape or form you pull out, you will not play. And I don't think they'll say, right, you're not playing for 2 years. I just don't think you'll be invited back again. So it's a precarious one for Jofra as well. So that conversation between Jofra Archer, Rob Key, the medical team, going forward, is massive. I mean, it's huge. It could be a deal breaker, because if he does go to the IPL off the back of England not wanting him to go, then where's he stand contractually? I think that's a huge conversation, because I think if he goes to the IPL and just bowls 4 overs after 4 overs after 4 overs, that's fine. But I think his then rehabilitation from such a long layoff to go into a test match, I think you're running the risk of him possibly getting injured again if he has to go from 4 overs a week to then potentially going to a test match and bowling 35 overs in a week. I think that's an ask. That's an ask. As a bowler, you want to continually bowling, but the difference between 4 overs a week and 35 overs a week, because you've got to remember, in a test match, you've got to be thinking, I'm going to win. If I'm going to win, I'm going to bowl. I'm going to bowl a lot more than we're going to bat, because we need 20 wickets to win the game. And he is our key asset. He is our linchpin. He is the man who, when teams get 5 down, Ben Stokes will throw the ball to him. I want you to bowl at 90 miles an hour and blow this tail away. He'll bowl 5-10 overs more than any other seamer. And I think to try and get that workload up, I think he would have to have a build up to it. And I think that's where, from a contractually point of view and a pure selfish point of view, England's selfish point of view, I'd rather play him 2 games in our environment and bowl the same amount of overs than he will in 6 weeks in the IPL environment, just bowling a maximum of 4 overs, because he might not bowl 4 overs in every game. So I think there's a big argument coming, and I'm not sure who's going to win.
Okay, it's a really interesting one. 3 or 4 years ago, he did some red ball work in between IPL games to build up his workload. So maybe that's the plan. But it is really interesting, and that's one that we'll keep our eye on. A reminder that you can hear live and exclusive ball-by-ball commentary of the rest of the T20 series between the West Indies and England right here on talkSPORT 2, and of course the talkSPORT Cricket YouTube channel. You're listening to Following On here on talkSPORT 2. Next up, we'll be joined by former Australia spinner Brad Hogg to reflect on the Australian squad that was named for the Border-Gavaskar Trophy that starts later this month. You're listening to Following On here on talkSPORT 2 with me, Neil Manthorp, along with former England fast bowler Steve Harmison. And if you have missed any of the show and you'd like to catch up, you can download the podcast from the Following On feed, available as always via the free talkSPORT app or wherever you get your podcasts. Right, delighted to say it's Brad Hogg time. We're joined by the former Australian spinner to talk all things Border-Gavaskar Trophy and other things, Hoggy. But let's start with Nathan McSweeney, because I suppose many of us outside of Australia didn't see that name coming. We were all talking about Cameron Bancroft or indeed Marcus Harris. So tell us about the new opener.
Yeah, well, the new opener, he hasn't opened before in first-class cricket. He's been batting number 3 this year for South Australia. He's been captain. He's played India A as well. I think the other name that was going to be thrown up there to open the batting was Josh Inglis as well. So they wanted to step away from Harris, Bancroft, Renshaw as well. Those 3 are probably getting a little long on the tooth. But I think this is a good decision. It's a risky decision, but someone with a little bit of youth, they're taking a risk on to bat around the likes of Khawaja, Smith and Labuschagne. who are all coming to the end of their careers. So they're trying to give or blood a young batsman for the long-term future. So I think it's great that we're looking for the future rather than just trying to fill a hole right now.
All right, before Harmy asks you a question, let's actually hear from Nathan McSweeney himself. He was talking to the Unplayable podcast, and he sounded like he was pretty confident about stepping up to open.
For me, nothing really changes. Batting 3 for South Australia, I do similar prep and with the new ball. So for me, it's try and nail the same preparation, go out there, and that'll give myself every chance to go out and do a good job for the team.
Right in saying that you've never done it before in at Shield level?
Haven't done it before in Shield level. Quite a bit growing up, a little bit in grade cricket. So I think batting 3 can be in the second ball of the game. So for me, it's not too dissimilar, and the preparation side of it's exactly the same. So I'm very comfortable with it, and I'm looking forward to it.
That's Nathan McSweeney, Australia's new opener, speaking to the Unplayable podcast. What sort of a character is he? Seems quite confident.
I think he feels very confident. I think they've given him some leadership roles here this year. And I think that just shows that they think that he's probably someone that they're going to look at to lead Australia 5 years down the track after Pat Cummins leaves. So I think it's just not about opening the batting and that playing a position as the bat. I think it's looking for someone for the long term to lead this team and take over the reins from Pat Cummins down the road.
Hoggy, Steve Smith back to number 4 was a no-brainer, really, was it?
Oh, definitely a no-brainer. I think it was a waste of time even trying him up there as an opener. But I think it was probably good for Steve Smith at that time just to try something new, just try and reinvent the wheel a bit and give him a little bit more motivation moving forward and just change it up, because I think through that period, you look at Virat Kohli, you even look at Kane Williamson, you can just drop off with your form over a certain period of time. You need something new, just to give yourself a little bit of impetus and more motivation. And he's gone and tried it. It didn't come off. And now he might feel a little bit embarrassed about making that move. And it's going to make him more motivated to get back to number 4 and beat Steve Smith at his best.
Hoggy, Border-Gavaskar Trophy time. India in the country. There was some kerfuffle, wasn't there, about a ball change in the India A game against Australia A. The ball was changed by the umpire, and the whole incident was sort of hushed up. And Cricket Australia released a statement to say that the ball was replaced because of deterioration. And now we've got Jason Gillespie basically saying that Pakistan have been largely ignored before the start of the Border-Gavaskar Trophy. Australia and Cricket Australia treading very carefully with India in the country, it seems.
Well, it's like being married at home, isn't it? You think you wear the pants until the wife steps up and says, "That's not good enough. This is what I want. This is where we're going." So I think Cricket Australia know who's wearing the pants at the moment.
Yeah, I get that. I'm always a boss in my house. When she's not in, it's great, isn't it? You're a hero until that door comes and she goes, "Honey, I'm home." Yeah, and then you start taking the trousers off and you're giving them back. But you're talking about sort of trousers, and we look at this Test squad. It's a big 12 months for England, for India, for Australia. Huggy, I played at the back end of that great generation that you played, the lads that you played with. And there was always a call of they're going to finish at the same time. You're back to where you are then, now. But I always look at that decision when the likes of Hayden Langer and McGrath and Warren, all them finished. They're your best players, and if your best players are still playing well at a certain age, surely you work on the consequences later down the line. Is this the final hurrah for quite a few of the sort of modern day greats of Australia?
Yeah, look, I think the next 2 years is going to be trouble for Australia, really. We've got to look at our depth. And if you look at the one-day series against Pakistan, Neil just brought that up. no one's really talked about the Pakistan one-day series here. We've just had a game out of the stadium here in Perth, and I'm playing lawn bowls. And on Saturday after lawn bowls, they said, "Oh, you coming to play the triples tomorrow?" I said, "No, I'm commentating out of the stadium." And they said, "Well, what are you commentating out of the stadium?" They had no idea that Pakistan were playing Australia down the road. So that's how big Pakistan. That's how people have been thinking about that one-day series here. They're waiting for that Border-Gavaskar Trophy. So going back to where you're talking about, if you've got Steve Smith, Khawaja, Labuschagne might go on for another 3, hopefully 4 years, but you've also got the bowling department there in Cummins, Hazelwood and Stark. How long are they going to go for too? Especially with Cummins and Hazelwood getting big dollars in the IPL. They might go away from the international game and go and concentrate on that shorter form and pick up the big bucks there and save the body. But if you look at that Pakistan one-day game, our second team were not up to it. They didn't bat more than 34 overs in all 3 50-over matches. And they're up against a quality bowling lineup of Pakistan. We are struggling with depth with the bat, and we're also struggling with a bit of depth with the ball as well, especially in Test cricket.
I don't know whether Lance Morris is not making the progress that was predicted for him, or whether he just hasn't had the opportunities. There's him. He's quick, and there's also a 19-year-old batsman who people are making a big fuss about, Sam Constas.
Yeah, well, he's hardly making a run now, but he's only made the 200s out the start of the season, but he hasn't really delivered after that as well. And you talk about Lance Morris. Lance Morris is around 30. He's a late developer as well. He's not someone that you're going to look to have a long future with. So we've got to go down to the depth of our young quicks, and there's not really too many coming through at the moment that can just step up and step in and deliver. So there are big worries moving forward for Australia. We might go through a very, very tough 2-year period.
Speaking of worries, Hoggy, I've just had a rant a bit earlier. It was a long-winded one. Manners didn't really understand because I'd gone on a bit too far. But you're across cricket. You've got a great YouTube channel, fantastic on the wider ranges of cricket. I just said I'm worried about the landscape of international cricket and the direction which it's going in. We know the T20 franchises are there and everything that's going with it, but England are in the Caribbean. There's nobody there watching. When New Zealand just played Sri Lanka, nobody's really interested. You talked about Jason Gillespie. You played with him. I mean, I played against him. A great cricket man. When he's talking about Pakistan not being sort of people interested in Pakistan against Australia, this 50-over cricket probably died. T20 cricket is on the ascendancy. Techniques in Test match cricket, I think, is really, really poor. For somebody who loves cricket as much as you do, and you make your name off the sort of the world that you live in with the YouTube stuff, are you concerned about the landscape of international cricket? Because I certainly am.
I'm definitely concerned about it. Now, you look at this Australian one-day team that we've just had. We've got Fraser McGurk playing in one-day cricket, and he's hardly played any one-day cricket before. He hasn't even made 100 in grade cricket here in Australia. I think he's only made 100 in first-class cricket. And they've got him playing, opening the batting for Australia at the moment, and he hasn't deserved the right to be there as such. It's all on potential. But then you're bringing out good points there. I go back to June. I think you had all the big wigs of cricket out Lords talking about, what are the issues that we face? And I've just gone through that because I got an email today. I'm thinking they're all ex-players. They're still all those people that are there are still making good money out of the game. There's no one there from business. There's no one there from the fans. There's no other stakeholder there that's out the grassroots saying, this is what we want. What do we want? What do the pundits out there? Why are people coming to watch the game? And when you've got international cricket, you've got England who are playing so much cricket at the moment, and they're trying to keep the game going. But they've got a T20 team, they've got a one-day team, they've got a test team, and they're chopping and changing, trying to rest players. You've got a game out there, an international game, and it's a high-ticket item. You want your fans to come and watch, and you want them to pay the big bucks. Well, the big boys have got to be playing. You can't have this mismatch of, we're just trying this. We're resting this player over here. We'll give this guy a go. No, that's not good enough. Your first class system, if a guy has made runs belting down the wall or getting wickets, belting down the wall, deserves that spot, well, he plays for his country. Not this, we're playing so much cricket, we've got to try all these players. We've got to sit down and work out what's best for the game and provide a decent product for the punters out there to follow. And I just think I just think that we're providing. It's a bit like going to McDonald's at the moment to get a burger. 10 years ago, you'd pay £4 and you get this big fat thing, and now you're paying £6 and it's a little bit smaller. That's basically what cricket's doing at the moment with the product.
Hoggy, international cricket is being watered down to the point of tastelessness, and people are still, or broadcasters and advertisers are still paying the money, but at some point they're going to stop, and then suddenly people will realize that the game has been watered down too much and diluted to the point of tastelessness, as I said. Anyway, finally from me, Border-Gavaskar Trophy. India have won the last two series. So the feeling, I think, amongst most of us looking from outside Australia is that with no Mohammad Shami, with Virat Kohli and Rohit Sharma maybe a bit long in the tooth, Australia, okay, this current generation still very, very strong. India needing to win 4-0 in order to reach the World Test Championship final, having just lost 3-0 to New Zealand. Can you, in your wildest nightmares, see anything but a comprehensive Australian win?
I think everything's in favour of Australia at the moment, but really, if you look at our Australian top order, it's really only Travis Head that's really been doing the damage. The other players have slightly been off, but that's the same with India as well. But when I'm looking at this Indian lineup, they are definitely going to miss Shami here. But there's one player, a youngster that plays for Kolkata Knight Riders in the T20 format, but he's got a heart. He just got fire. He wants to be in the batsman's face, and that's Harshit Rana. He's got that extra pace. I've seen him. He's got a very, very quick bouncer, searing Yorker. If he can sort of be support, if he can play, I think he can ruffle a few feathers in the Australian batting lineup, and could be good support for Avish Deep, who's the bowler like Glenn McGrath here, to support Boomer as well. I think if they get those youngsters right and balance it right, I think they could upset Australia.
And Hoggy, we're 1 year from the Ashes. I reckon England are more or less the group that's going to New Zealand will probably be the group that comes to Australia or close to it. Are we going to see any surprises with the Australian group, or is this going to be more or less the 11, 12 that are going to take on England?
I don't think you'll see any more changes from the Australian group. I think if you're looking out right, players could retire in a big cluster. I think it'll be after that Ashes series here in Australia next year. I think they'll all want to play in that Ashes series. So watch out for that space. I think it's going to be a great contest, because you've got a different brand of cricket. You've got youngsters that would have been in the system for another year and a half, playing that aggressive brand of Brendan McCullum style of cricket. They'll have more confidence, and the Australian team at that stage will be a little bit long on the tooth. And I think it will be the young versus the old, and it's going to be a cracker of a series. I can't wait for a year and a half away, or 2 years.
Hoggy, it's been brilliant to talk to you. Thank you so much. Enjoy the 5 test matches this summer. Hopefully we'll be able to catch up with you in your YouTube channel during the Border-Gavaskar Trophy. So prediction, you're going Australia 4-0?
I'm going Australia 3-2. But the other thing going in Australia's favour is they play in Perth, then Brisbane, then the ping ball test in Adelaide. So you're sort of playing in those foreign conditions up front against India, though India have beaten Australia out all 3 of those venues. So it's going to be tough. And Virat Kohli's already here in Perth practicing ahead of the rest of the Indian team. So that just shows that he means business as well. And that's not a good sign for Australia, is it?
That's former Australian spinner Brad Hogg in great form. You're listening to Following On here on talkSPORT 2 with me, Neil Manthorp, along with double Ashes winner Steve Harmison. And next up in part 4, we'll find out how Pakistan are reacting to that series win in Australia, if anyone noticed. And we bring you, of course, the final word. Okay, we're joined now live by Behram Qazi from Pakistan, cricket writer and broadcaster, and a friend of this show, to confirm the breaking news that surprised absolutely nobody in the cricket world, that India have confirmed that they will not travel to Pakistan for the Champions Trophy. Behram, and Pakistan, from what we understand, and you can confirm this hopefully for us, have confirmed that there is no plan to have a second host venue. So Pakistan have said they will not host Indian games in the UAE, for example. It's all snowballing into a crisis that everybody saw coming months ago.
Yes, absolutely, Manners. I mean, what an absolute shocker, right? As you said before. And a lot of people thought that this would be on the cards and India would not travel to Pakistan. I, for one, have been echoing that sentiment for a long time now. And Pakistan is very upset. And I think they have grounds to be upset over here as well, because, why gift Pakistan or award Pakistan the Champions Trophy hosting rights in the first place if this was bound to happen? And secondly, there have been tournaments in the past where, certain teams don't want to play in a host country. You think about Australia and the West Indies in Sri Lanka in 1996. And then you also think about a couple of teams in 2003 who didn't tour Kenya during the 2003 ODI World Cup, right? So there is some precedence over there. And Pakistan doesn't have, much leverage in this situation. India is a powerhouse. And they do have one chip on the bargaining table, I feel. And that is the India-Pakistan game, because that game alone generates so much funds that it feeds the cricket of lesser endowed test nations as well. So one power move that Pakistan could go for over here, in my opinion, is that they forfeit the India game at the Champions Trophy. And yes, that reduces their chances of making the semi-finals, but I feel like it might be the only way to, send a strong statement and still not disrupt the tournament. But from what I'm hearing thus far, they, or at least people at the PCB, after talking to the government, are thinking around, if there's if there is a hybrid model, they'll reject it. And if the tournament is moved out of Pakistan, then Pakistan won't participate. So yeah, tempers are flaring and it's a very, very tricky situation right now.
Yeah, Behram, I was involved in that 2003 where we didn't go to Zimbabwe. It was Zimbabwe we didn't go to. Our lives got threatened. We didn't go. We fully understood the 4 days in the room were quite hectic talks. We fully understood that we were going to lose 2 points. We probably wouldn't go to the knockout stages if Pakistan beat Zimbabwe that went there. We understood all the consequences that were there. My question is, there's a couple of questions in this one. One is the stadiums going to be fit and ready for that tournament? And that's one way the ICC might get out of it. And two, when it comes down to the forfeit, who forfeits the game? Is it India forfeiting the game versus Pakistan? Or is it Pakistan, who are the host nations, forfeiting the game versus India? Because if in 2003, I don't think there was much chance of England getting to the final of the ICC World Cup because we weren't very good. In 2025 Champions Trophy, the likelihood is India would get to the final. And you can't have a farcical tournament if the team that gets to the final can't play in the final because it's in Pakistan.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right over there. To answer your first question, Harmy, I would say that, the PCB have been telling us, the media, that these stadiums are on track. But there is a fear, right? And I was speaking to some of the ECB higher-ups during England's tour to Multan, and they also, had that fear. And I mean, it is a race against time, but everything that they've kind of communicated is that all things are on course and the stadium should be ready. And, it is quite late for them to be doing this because they knew about the Champions Trophy since 2021. So why renovate those stadiums right at the end? That is a cause for concern. But either way, even if, let's suppose, that Lahore and Karachi aren't fully complete, you've got Rawalpindi at the very least, right, where you could host the Champions Trophy. That's worst case scenario, though. And as for your second question, look, in theory, India should be forfeiting the Pakistan game, right? India has the strong stance that we don't want to play Pakistan, and that's where the isolation policy stems from. So, in an ideal world, they should be conceding the points. But this is a rare situation over here where you can't have the Champions Trophy without India. I've heard a lot of people saying that, oh, replace India with Sri Lanka. Look, that's not possible. And we all know that India brings 90% of the revenue into the game. And then they are at a high ground when they say we're only taking away 50% back. So you have to have India in the tournament. But Pakistan, shouldn't bend over backwards once again over here after the Asia Cup in 2023, and just accommodate India completely, I feel. Because, there is a bit of self-respect at stake over here as well. And people feel very passionately about this in Pakistan. So then why don't you concede the points? But that's not how cricket works. And that's not how capitalism works either. So Pakistan, if they are met with a situation where India, plays in the UAE and there's a hybrid model, then I feel like the PCB should just go ahead and say that, okay, India cannot play in Pakistan. But whenever Pakistan faces India in this tournament, whether that be in a group stage or in a knockout, they should forfeit that game. That should be sending a strong message, because you don't have very many options. If you withdraw Pakistan from the tournament entirely, then, well, Pakistan cricket loses, right? So it's a very, very complicated and tricky situation for Pakistan in particular, because, like I said before, they don't have a lot of bargaining chips. It's just that India-Pakistan game.
It just doesn't seem like there's a solution even remotely possible. I mean, I wanted to ask you about the one-day series win in Australia and Jason Gillespie's comments that Pakistan were being ignored by the host broadcasters and all of those issues. But as far as the Champions Trophy is concerned, I mean, if India play all their group games outside of Pakistan, and then what happens if they reach the semi-final? And then where do you play the final? It's completely... You can't have a hybrid model. It's impossible because the semi-finals and the final, you play them in Dubai as well.
Yeah, it's absolutely untenable. I don't see how this would work out. And who would want, let's suppose that Pakistan, who are the defending champions, by the way, right? They get to the final and they meet India over there, and then that game doesn't happen. That is really, really bad for the sport. And, this is not how cricket should be run. It's probably the the worst run major sport in the world, I would say, team sport, because there's so much disparity, right? And to your earlier point, Pakistan was given these rights in 2021. Why are these issues being raised in November 2024, a couple of months before the Champions Trophy? It's not like India and Pakistan's relations have been different, or were different 4 years ago. These two countries are going at loggerheads versus each other, and India has been very clear with respect to their stances. Pakistan players don't even play in the IPL. They haven't played since the first edition, right? So, yeah, I mean, just from the perspective of someone who covers cricket in Pakistan, look, Pakistan is a major cricket team. They have rich cricketing heritage, and those players deserve to play an ICC tournament in front of their home fans. Those home fans deserve to watch their players in an ICC tournament in their own grounds, and us media professionals, we deserve to cover the Champions Trophy from our home grounds as well. So it is really tragic. It's an absolute travesty if you think about it. And, India sends other teams, other sport teams to Pakistan. The wrestlers are here, the tennis players come here, etc., etc. Why do things change when it comes to cricket? What's different over there? Are these security concerns only for the cricketers? Are those other Indian sportsmen or sportswomen lesser Indians? It just doesn't make sense to me. It seems like power brokerage at its finest from the BCCI over here. And I mean, Jay Shah is about to become ICC president as well very soon. So Pakistanis are fearful.
I was about to say, is there any grown-ups can jump into this room? Is there anybody on either side, Behram, where you think, well, if he speaks to him, we might get an outcome? And the reason why I say that is every time I see India play Pakistan, even a little sample size of was it 2 years ago? Mohammad Rizwan and Cheswar Pradara played for Sussex together, batting in the middle. What a photograph that was. When India play Pakistan in world tournaments, there seems to be a great relationship between the players. They really seem to enjoy playing against each other, and there's something there, not in animosity, but in a warmth, especially embrace at the end of each game. Is there two players on either side in the sort of hierarchy where you go, if he speaks to him and they get on, we've got half a chance of having some sort of positive outcome in this ridiculous solution?
That's a fantastic question, Harmy. I mean, if you look at the players, like you mentioned, there's a lot of goodwill over there, and those players get along with each other. And I've heard from my sources that there are some Indian players who are keen to go to Pakistan, right? Because they would want to, exact their revenge from the 2017 Champions Trophy final in Pakistan, and that's a very nice arc. And in theory, yes, there are a few, well, I don't know if you can call them grown-ups, but powerful people, who could potentially speak to each other and this could be resolved. So Jay Shah, the big man, his dad is the Home Minister of India, Amit Shah. And Pakistan's chairman, PCB's chairman, is Pakistan's Interior Minister and member of Senate, Mohsen Naqvi. So those two guys have the same job, Amit Shah and Mohsen Naqvi. And in theory, if you get those guys in a room together, you could find some sort of resolution over here, right? But it's just that the countries just don't get along with each other at all. And like India has been very open about their isolation policy in the past. If you can go back and look at some quotes by Anurag Thakur, he says it quite blatantly. And the Asia Cup in 2023 is a very fine example of how this sort of movie plays out. And that hybrid model was even worse. Pakistan was playing in Pakistan, going to Sri Lanka, coming back to play in Pakistan, going to Sri Lanka. And there were flights and buses involved, and there was a lot of fatigue. And Pakistan never truly recovered after that, even going into the World Cup. So, both countries need to sit down, and Pakistan needs to basically just ask India that, if there is no world in which you are going to tour Pakistan, then what are we supposed to do? Why even award the Champions Trophy to Pakistan in this first place? And they can't just continue to, bend over backwards, and you can only get trampled on by the bully for so long. At some point, you've got to stand up for yourself. And, if that means not being able to defend your title properly in the Champions Trophy at home, then I suppose so be it, because something has got to give, Harmy.
It's the level of disrespect and pettiness in many ways that I find distressing. I mean, it's one thing when two countries go to war and people lose their lives and there are massive political issues, matters of life and death, literally. But I mean, when journalists receive emails saying you better not go to the Champions Trophy, you'll never get accredited again to go to India, I just think that things descend to a level of pettiness that is most unfortunate. But I will have to stay close, keep your ear close to the ground, stay close to the action, and if you hear anything, please let us know how this situation is going to be resolved, because as I said, I can't see the tournament taking place.
Yeah, I mean, right now it's on thin ice, if you ask me. And I just hope the PCB is measured with their response. We expect a strong stance for them, but we don't know exactly what it is. We also know that they've asked the ICC to get BCCI's response in writing as to what the reason is behind them not touring Pakistan, because security can't be it. All teams have been here. They get presidential level security, and other Indian teams across sport have been here, right? So that much we know, but what we don't know is whether or not this tournament will even happen. Like, there little birds are saying that might be moved to South Africa entirely. And then if Pakistan withdraws, everyone loses, right?
Pakistan writer and broadcaster Behram Qazi, and what a situation. And as we have said several times, everybody saw it coming years ago. Harmy, it's time for the final word. And I don't know, we've got a selection as always, and they're all brilliant stories. I want to start with New Zealand. And Will Young and Glenn Phillips and Mitchell Santner in particular, who weren't allowed to take the champagne-soaked flight back to New Zealand after their historic 3-0 Test Series win against India. They had to stay behind and play in the T20s against Sri Lanka. And how it's just wonderful. They got heavily beaten in the first T20, and they were then bowled out for 108 in the second T20, with Will Young top scoring with 30. Remember, he was player of the series in the Test matches. And then Glenn Phillips, who I still think of as a wicketkeeper, finished things off, bowled Sri Lanka out for 103. They won by 5 runs, with Phillips taking 3 for 6. It's just hilarious story. That they're the 2 of only 3 players, I think, who had to stay behind. So that was brilliant. And then there is Mohammad Nabi and Afghanistan beating Bangladesh in an ODI series in Sharjah. Mohammad Nabi on the verge of his 40th birthday, in the wickets and in the runs. So there are those two. And there's Lizelle Lee as well, who I probably will give my final word to. 150 for the Hobart Hurricanes women's Big Bash team. Absolutely brilliant. Former South African opener, who she's, by her own admission and in her own words, she's always struggled with her weight. She's a big girl. She got shamed for failing various fitness tests in South Africa, retired, and is continuing to prove that it doesn't matter what you look like if you continue to hit the ball as well as she did. 12 fours, 12 sixes, 150 off 75 balls.
Yeah, I was going to say it was a great highlights reel, but it looked as though the highlights reel was the 75 balls. I mean, there's some big hits in there, and again, there are people who I'm honestly, it frustrates the life out of me when you hear that people are not getting selected on fitness. I was like, can you bat? Can you bowl? Well, yeah, your fitness will stop allowing you to bat and bowl. If you can hit 150 off 75 balls, no matter what time you do 2 kilometers in, you can walk it for all I care. I mean, I think that is just people who haven't played the game. In the world of sport, you give jobs to people who have got no idea what it's like to be on the field in a battle playing the game. And boy, are they dangerous if you get the wrong ones, because all they're bothered about is having their little 5 minutes of fame inside the dressing room. They get their half an hour of your whole squad attention seeking for you. I'm off on another rant. And they're all they're looking at is numbers. Numbers mean absolutely nothing when it comes to talent. The talent is everything. And unfortunately, Lizzie Lee's not playing international cricket because some moron says she can't do 2 kilometers in so long time. But she can hit 150 and 75 balls. She plays every day of the week for me, and she always will.
Final word to Lizelle Lee, former South African opener. Brilliant stuff. You've been listening to Following On with me, Neil Manthorp, alongside former England fast bowler Steve Harmison. We'll be back same time next week. We'll be looking ahead to England's Test series in New Zealand, which is live and exclusive ball-by-ball commentary on talkSPORT 2 later this month. But for now, this has been another edition of Following On.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.